The Memphis Grizzlies play the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight in Game 2. Probably won't lose by 51. Fingers crossed. We're going to talk about that game, of course, but we're going to lead off this show. Jaren Jackson Jr. getting blatantly disrespected on national television. Imagine thinking Isaiah Hartenstein is better than Jaren Jackson Jr. Couldn't be me. We're going to talk about that and more on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mullinax, and so excited to be riding once again with my partner, my friend, the dynamic duo, Damichael Cole, commercial appeal Memphis Grizzlies beat writer, with us for this edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Of course, previewing Game 2, hopefully a little bit better than Game 1 for the Grizzlies. We'll get there here momentarily. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. As proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube. Anywhere you get a podcast, make sure you're making Damichael and I part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time that episode drops. And also remember, we have the Locked On Daily newsletter, a free newsletter talking Memphis Grizzlies basketball, the NBA at large, fantasy basketball advice, so much more. LockedOnDaily.com. We'll be sure to talk about that newsletter throughout the show today as well. Damichael, thank you so much for being with us. I know it's a crazy time for you. You have a game on a Friday night to figure out you're going to the playoffs, and then you have to book a flight to Oklahoma City. You've been there for the last couple of days. It's been a whirlwind for you. I really enjoyed your solo episode yesterday. And I do want to talk about the series for obvious reasons. You and I haven't had a chance to be together.
We haven't.
Talk about the
series.
No,
not yet.
Right. We're going to get into that, dear listener, dear viewer. But I saw something on social media, and if you're an everydayer by now, you know I'm way too online for a 38-year-old white male. I'm just way too online. We can just be.
No way Joe was going to miss this. No way.
I saw, not because I watched the show, because I have actual better things to do with my life, like doom scroll social media, which is, an oxymoron, but I digress. Kendrick Perkins decides to call out Jaren Jackson Jr. Now, you know what? Jaren played like poop, and that's the technical term, poop, in Game 1, as did most of the team, not named Marvin Bagley III. And when Marvin Bagley III is your best player, you're probably going to lose to a team like the Thunder by 51. That's a fair thing to say. So calling out Jaren Jackson Jr., I don't have a problem with. This basketball analyst, Damichael Cole, went on national television, cable television, and said that there are 10 bigs, at least, that he would take in front of Jaren Jackson Jr. right now.
10 bigs.
He's 10 bigs. And he shouldn't have been an all-star. He made that. He didn't say that, but he inferred it through the sarcasm that was dripping from his voice. And he said that Jaren is the most overrated player in the National Basketball Association. First off, wow. There's just a lot going on there, and we don't have enough time. This is a 30-minute show to really dive deep into all of that crazy. I am going to take issue with the continued inability of people to understand. And I think Steven Adams, and shout out to Shy, a mutual friend of ours, covering the Grizzlies over at the Memphis Flyer, and she's been around the Grizzlies longer than I have, and I've been around them for a while. So shout out to Shy. She does a great job over there at the Memphis Flyer. Make sure you're checking out her stuff there. Absolutely. She tagged me, and I think it was Rusty from over at Bluff City Media. Tagged and there's a bunch of interactions. Whenever I get fired up on X, I know you know this, partner. I have to mute the comments sometimes because I get yelled at. I get distracted, and I'm supposed to be a good husband and father, and I'm not when I'm on social media. So she and I did when I was able to see this. Steven Adams several years ago talked about the reason why Jaren Jackson Jr. isn't the rebounder that so many people wish he would be, right? Whether it's him being depended on as a perimeter big in switches and scheme, whether it's him being that rim protector, the block machine, the guy that had such a high block percentage as Defensive Player of the Year. Steven Adams, very matter-of-factly, intelligently and correctly, said, if you're going up to defend a shot for the block, you are not physically capable of turning around to go and get the rebound. It is not possible. So Steven Adams, who I know you know this, one of the smartest basketball people that's ever played for the Memphis Grizzlies, just listening to his media availabilities, very wise basketball IQ guy, he gets it. And if you've watched Jaren Jackson Jr. for the last 7 years, you get it. And yet there are still people, including national media members, criticizing Jaren Jackson Jr. for not getting 10-plus rebounds a game. You are supposed to know basketball. Somebody that has a podcast like me, somebody that hangs out on social media like numerous people, also me.
Yeah.
We don't know as much. You played the game. You talk about being a McDonald's All-American. You talk about all these things that you did in your career, and you can't understand why Jaren Jackson Jr. doesn't grab 10-plus rebounds a game? No, it's not a strength of his game. We've been talking about that for years. I wish he was
college.
better. Common knowledge. But you not understanding schematically, you not being able to provide context to that situation, I'm embarrassed for Kendrick Perkins. You're either not able to understand that, which can't be true, or you're just purposefully trying to say outlandish things for clicks and generating content, which in fairness to you, congratulations, you got my attention at least. I just get tired of Jaren disrespect because he is very clearly one of the best players in the NBA. And to say that because he's a 6'11" guy that doesn't grab the amount of rebounds that you want him to grab, that makes him not good is ridiculous.
Yeah. Here's where I stand on this. Like, his words were, he's one of the most overhyped players. He said he's the most overhyped player.
The most overhyped
in the NBA. Did I miss where Jaren was this hyped up phenomenon?
Right.
Like,
another great point.
When people talk about the Grizzlies, they talk about Ja Morant, like, and Jaren, I guess to Kendrick's credit, if he was talking about the accolades, winning a defensive player of the year, multiple first team, all defense member, a couple all-stars, like he does have, some nice accolades at this point of his career. And here's where, I stand. Like, I'll touch on what you just said about the rebounding, because I'm at the point now, Joe, where, look, we talked about it, how great Jaren has been all season. And this is where it matters the most. Like, I think we talked about it with Santi at the beginning of the year. We were like, he could have a great season all season long, but if he doesn't produce in the playoffs, it's not going to matter. Jaren has had a great season pretty much all season long. He's got to be better in the playoffs. He's got to be better. Jaren Jackson Jr., if you go through the history of the Grizzlies in the playoffs, recent history, at least since in my time here that I've seen physically with my own eyes every single game. That first game 1 against OKC, he was bad. That Los Angeles Lakers series, game 1, he looked phenomenal. You remember that? They lost game 1, but the question was, who in the world is going to be the answer for Jaren? After that, he looked bad the rest of that series. Golden State series, he had moments, but overall, he did not look like the all-star that he was the following season. Against the Minnesota Timberwolves, you can make an argument there were probably 4 Grizzlies players that played better than Jaren in that Timberwolves series. Desmond Bane, Brandon Clark, Ja Morant, maybe even Tyus Jones. You can make an argument. But the point is, he's too good. Now, to the rebounding part of that, like, I agree with you to a certain degree, and that was kind of my whole thing for the last couple years. And I remember before this season, there was a lot of talk about, not directly saying that Jaren's block numbers were going to go up because he was playing beside a sizable big again, but they were saying, hey, the last time he averaged 2.5 blocks a game, he was beside Steven Adams, and he had to play the 5 more, so it took him out of position, whatever the case may be. His block numbers are eerily similar to last season. So I think at the end of the day, Jaren has his strengths, Jaren has his weaknesses. I feel like it is unique, is the best way to put it. It's unique for a 6'11" big to not be a good rebounder. And that's why people continue to harp on it. But he's very good in other areas, and he's weak in other areas, as we've kind of talked about as well. But, his shot blocking, his hands defensively, we don't talk about that enough. The guy average over a block, average over a steal because he has great defensive instincts with his hands, as well. But when you talk about some of the problems, that he has, they're very evident, especially with the rebounding. But he's no different than any other player on this Grizzlies team. Morant is fantastical, right? One of the best finishers in the NBA, one of the best scorers. Morant has never been above league average shooter. Jaren Jackson Jr. has never been above league average rebounder. Desmond Bane, terrific player. But when it comes to creating his own shot down the stretch of games, that is not a strength for him. So that is an area where we don't see, Desmond Bane closing out games to the level of Ja Morant and at times Jaren Jackson Jr. in the past. So all these guys have notable holes in their game, so to speak. So Jaren is not, the only player on the Grizzlies who is in that category, but he seems to get kind of the most attention from that standpoint because he is 6'11" and he doesn't rebound. But with all that being said, I'll leave it here. Most overhyped may be a stretch, but look, Joe, I am at the point I want to see him play better in the playoffs. Like this is a money year for him. Like you should be putting your foot down and showing, hey, this is why you need to pay me.
No, I agree with that completely, and I want to stress that. I posted that on X. Be mad at Jaren for the things you expect him to be good at that he wasn't in game one.
You did.
Right? Like, be mad at him for that. He shot terribly. He was lazy. He was taking bad shots. He was not doing the things that he is expected to do for this team to be competitive. He's not expected to be a great rebounder. That's why Zach Edey exists. That's why he's there.
That's why they drafted him, yeah.
That's why they drafted him. They know that Jaren is not a good rebounder, and they don't want to use him in that way. So be critical of him and say that you need more, because you do, in the spaces where he has shown that he's capable in the past. And you made the point about Ja. I posted about that too. Being mad at Jaren for not grabbing 10-plus rebounds, as some state, I think Perkins even said something like that. Being mad at Jaren for not doing that is like being mad at Ja in the 2025 NBA for not being a guard who shoots 40% from three. Like, Ja does so many other things well.
Or even 35.
Right, yeah. I mean, he does so much well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a hole in his game, and you want him to get better, but that's not the point. The point is they are there to do a job. The team is constructed in a certain way. They have to achieve in what their role is first. Let Damichael and I know in the comments. Hit us up on X at Damichael C at Joe Mullinax. How are you feeling about Jaren? I'm not excusing his poor play. I want to make that very clear. Has to be better for Memphis to not get blown out in any game of this series. He hasn't been good enough. The rebounding isn't where my frustration lies. Let us know if you agree in the comments or on social media. When we come back, we're going to talk about practice at Oklahoma City yesterday. Damichael Cole, of course, on the ground there in Oklahoma City. He was there. He's going to give us some takeaways. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here. FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, place your first $5 bet, you will get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how easy betting is on FanDuel. You open the app, it gives you all of these amazing options, different types of bets you can make, whether it's following along with the Grizzlies, diving into player props, whether it's a basketball game, a baseball game. There's so many sports going on around the world that you can get in on the action literally almost any time of day, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props, and you can get into a same-game parlay even after the game tips off for a chance to win big. Again, the playoffs are here. Don't miss out on the action. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, Damichael, so as I mentioned, you are there on the ground in OKC ready for Game 2. The Grizzlies practiced on Monday. You were there. Just some thoughts, takeaways, things you saw. You know, I know Ja Morant did some media with the Grind City Media folks. Just kind of overall where the team's head is after such an embarrassing loss. You know, you reported over at the Commercial Appeal. You talked about it on the show yesterday. Obviously, it's only one loss, right? It's not like it counts for 2 or 3 losses, the amount of points you lose by. The OKC is only up by 1. right?
That's
What
it.
is the mindset of the team from what you saw at practice going into tonight's game 2?
Yeah, it's strange to me because what we saw in game 1 was, it's like it's no way this team wins probably a game in this series, let alone, multiple games. Based off what we saw in game 1, they were just completely overmatched. And I think you said it to me before the show, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander didn't even play that well. Like I forget how long it's been, Joe. You probably can find it, but it was the first time he hadn't scored 20 points since sometime last year, I believe it was. It was
definitely the first
stretch.
time this season that he had scored below 20 points in a game.
Yeah. Like so that happened and they still won by 51. But getting back to the point of practice, we talked to Marvin Bagley, we talked to Santi Aldama, and we talked to Tomasi Salo as well. And kind of the consistent theme is going to carry over into our game 2 preview in the next segment a little bit. But kind of the consistent theme that you get is we watched the film, we saw some areas that are correctable and fixable. Now, look, Joe, I'm not trying to be the pessimist here, but look, there's this thing called reality. And to me, we've seen the Grizzlies play the Thunder 5 times this year. Turnovers have been a problem in pretty much every single one of those games. I have no reason to believe that turnovers won't continue to be a problem. But the Grizzlies say, hey, we've identified some ways we can get better in that area. So that's a key thing that they're focusing on, as well as getting more out of their bigs as well. Marvin Bagley is getting a bigger role, and really, wanted to see your thoughts on that too, because Isalo basically came out and said it, that he's the Brandon Clark replacement in a way. So curious to see how he kind of continues to grow into that role going forward as well.
Yeah, Bagley was impressive in game 1, and he was impressive against the Mavericks. He's showing his value as an NBA rotation big. Maybe he does stick around in Memphis beyond this season. It'll be interesting to see how free agency goes. I am with you on the turnovers. I've been blowing that horn for a long time. Yeah. And unfortunately, one of the biggest culprits of this is Desmond Bane, right? You talked earlier in the show about his end of game closing and how that's a struggle for him. His decision-making is really something that you're not going to be able to flip that switch. It's not going to fix in a game or a day. One practice isn't going to solve the problem. But just being more cognizant of how important possessions are against the Thunder. For the Grizzlies to win a game, much less win this series, they're going to have to play perfect, just about, basketball. And they're going to have to hope the Thunder make some mistakes. And you cannot be the one making the mistake. This OKC team is too good. They have too many shooters. They have too many guys that thrive in transition. They have an MVP candidate in SGA. These guys are legit. And if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. So we'll talk more about game 2 here in a moment. But I want to see how Desmond Bane responds in terms of decision-making. If you think you have a pass and it against other teams, like against the Wizards or against the Hornets, that pass worked. It's not going to work against the Thunder. They close out too quickly. They're too long on the perimeter. They are too good defensively. Don't make the pass. You have to find another look. You have to finish at the rim yourself. You're going to have to
close out really quick.
Correct. Like anything that you have experienced against any other team except maybe Boston, right? It's completely different against the Thunder because of their length, because of the way that they play. There's a reason that it seems like their kryptonite right now is Luka Doncic. Is because that's a bigger point guard. Like he's a point guard that's 6'8", 200-some pounds. And he has the size and the strength and the ball creativity and decision-making to be able to negate what OKC does. Memphis doesn't have that guy. If you want to put Ja in the same realm as Luka, as a playmaker and creator off the dribble, okay, I'm not going to argue that point on Locked On Grizzlies, but that's the closest Memphis has. He doesn't have the size that Doncic does. So you're in a position, Desmond Bane certainly doesn't have that size either. Those passes, those moves, they're not going to work the same. You have to be able to adjust.
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit in the show on yesterday.
Right.
That what Mark Dagnall said. He said that like I'm paraphrasing it a little bit, but when he was talking about the Grizzlies system, he said it wasn't complicated. And that's not surprising to us because early in the season, it was the opposite. Everyone was like, oh, this new system they're running, it's different. But when you watch the Grizzlies, and this goes back to kind of like the two sides of the coin we were talking about when everyone wanted the Grizzlies to do more pick and roll. Oh, we want to see more pick and roll, more pick and roll. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to activate Ja, right? And that's what's happened. Ja's playing his best basketball of the season. It's going to help Zach Edey. That's what's happened. Zach Edey's playing his best basketball of the season. But at the same time, how many times have we gotten the playoff series against the Lakers, against the Warriors, against the Timberwolves? How many times have we seen it where the Grizzlies have to stretch and claw for offense? Because when you get to the postseason and you're playing those defenses who are physical, who are connected, who have multiple elite defenders, and you simply, because a lot of pick and roll is creating mismatches. And when you set that screen and you get Ja off of whatever guard on OKC, congratulations, Chet Holmgren standing in front of you now. Like, you set that screen. Congratulations. Isaiah Hartenstein's standing in front of you. And yeah, he might be slow in the feet. Yeah, sure. Go ahead and get past him. Now you got to score at the rim on Chet Holmgren. Like, it's not easy against this team in no way, shape, or form. So, look, pick and roll sometimes can be really easy to guard in ways, especially if you're just running, top of the key pick and roll. Like Kobe Bryant talked about this, basically saying it's hard for teams who are overly reliant on that style of basketball to win, titles, because defenses can load up and pretty much dictate where the ball goes. And you kind of get the sense that OKC is trying to do that and wants to do some of that. They mixed in a little bit of zone on the Grizzlies in the last game, then jumped right back into man. So they kind of junking the game up a little bit. But we're talking so much about, what the Grizzlies can do in terms of, not creating these turnovers. I think adding more diversity to the offense is going to be a big part of that as well, because if you're just coming up the court and it's Zach Edey setting me a screen, it's not really hard for the defense to dictate where the ball is going to go.
And of course, one of the great ironies, and we talked about this back when the season was about to get started, the offensive changes were supposed to be for right now, right? That was part of the point. So the abandonment of that, essentially, or at least the adjustment and return to some pick and roll, the offensive tweaks were supposed to be about, let's see how it works in the postseason. And obviously, we will never get that chance. Hit us up on X. Hit us up on the comment section on YouTube, at Damichael C for Damichael, at Joe Mullinax for me. How are you feeling going into tonight's game 2? And that's what we're going to be talking about next. Previewing game 2. Hopefully not a blowout loss for Memphis. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, one of your hosts, joined by my co-host, Michael Cole, the commercial appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee, award-winning Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. Damichael, we'll get out of here on this game 2 preview. It's lazy. People come here for hard-hitting analysis, right? It's lazy to say just play better. Don't get smoked. I think
just keep it respectable, right?
Right. Yeah. People want
have
more
some
than
dignity
that.
when you walk off the floor. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, and it's hard to say this because the guy he's certainly not 100%. He can't be with the ankle. No matter what is being shot into his ankle, he's not 100%. It's not possible. The game was 21-15, and I think you talked about this a little bit yesterday. The game was 21-15 when Ja subbed out in the first quarter. It was not a blowout. It was a 2-possession game, essentially. And OKC, while Ja was on the bench, went on a 30-7 run. And I think that Morant holds the key here. So I am interested in game 2. It has to be maybe the last 2 minutes of the first quarter and the first 2 minutes of the second. Like, if Ja's ankle can handle it, I think we need to start thinking 40 minutes of playing time here for this guy. And, I'm not as familiar with the structure of the TV timeouts as you are, Damichael. Yeah. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. You get him out of the 3-minute timeout or whatever the case might be, just to squeeze as many seconds as you can. They have to have him on the court for an extended period of time because he is their one guy that can get his own bucket, or at the very least, the Thunder have to respect as somebody, even with their length and their talent and the athleticism on the perimeter. They have to respect Ja Morant. They will help off of him. Any offensive chances they have are with Morant on the court. So minimizing
100%.
the time that he's not on the court and minimizing the impact of those Morantless minutes, that's going to be the biggest key for me.
Yeah, and I'll go a step further. Even with you, with what you just said, when Ja Morant's out of the game, the two guys that you're relying on most as playmakers are Scottie Pippen Jr. and Desmond Bane. What did you just talk about with Desmond Bane? The turnovers. Scottie Pippen Jr., since he's come into the league, since he came out of college, decision making as a point guard. Can he be he's a shooting guard playing style, but he's a point guard by size. That's always been a kind of the take on Scottie Pippen Jr. So the point is you have two guys who aren't really the most natural playmaking type of point guards, and OKC is just built to feast on that. Like, this is a team we're talking about. When you take their starters out, they had Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso coming off the bench. Cason Wallace earlier this season was on pace to have an all-defensive season before, other guys got in the starting lineup, whatever the case may be. Alex Caruso
you could argue is a defensive player of the year candidate when he gets the minutes.
He was first team all defense recently. Like, they have the makeup to constantly put pressure on you. And you talked about the fact needing to keep Ja in the game for longer stretches. I definitely thought about that. Isolo talked about how the Grizzlies struggled when he was out of the game. So that is something that I'm going to be watching, as well. But here's another thing for me, Joe. And we're talking to the bigs after the game, Zach Edey, Jaren Jackson Jr. And you can see it with your eyes too. OKC swarms bigs. Like, you get the ball and it's like a group of sharks seeing like a little driplet of blood. Like, and they will take the ball out of your hands or they will just foul you. Like, this team is one of the most, they foul a lot. And I saw
doesn't always get called. Poor Zach Edey got mauled like a shark was biting him.
Did he? I mean,
whole new meaning to the term thunderstruck.
In that first quarter, he definitely took a couple of those big hits. But yeah, the bigs got to be strong. They got to take care of the ball. Zach Edey, Jaren Jackson Jr. especially, we talk about it a lot with his playmaking, and we saw it in that Dallas game, right? He made some nice passes. I know you were happy to see it, but that's a big part of this game for me. These bigs on the Grizzlies side have to be prepared to be strong, because OKC, even though they play big a lot, they're okay with having Jalen Williams or Alex Caruso guarding Jaren Jackson Jr. and just having, two guys swarm him from either side. That's going to be a big part of this as well. The Grizzlies bigs got to take care of the ball. They got to be strong, and they got to be dominant.
Have to be dominant. That has to be a place where they win. I agree. The front court, Ja's minutes, and how they're distributed. If the turnover number is 6 or 7 going into the fourth quarter, I think the Thunder are 14-point favorites or something like that going into the game tonight. If it's 6 or 7, 5-ish.
Let's put a number on it, Joe. How many turnovers do you want to see the Grizzlies stay under in this game? What's your
10?
Number?
Has to be under 10.
For the whole game?
Maybe right at 10. If it's 13, 14, 15 turnovers, they'll be down 20 or 30 points. Yep. OKC's too good. They're gonna kill you. They will take advantage of that. Lesser teams have taken advantage of the Grizzlies' turnovers. The Thunder, there is a reason why in the hellscape that is the Western Conference, where the Golden State Warriors, the 7th seed, beat the absolute hell out of the Houston Rockets in game 1. May not be that way the whole series, but again, we're talking about the 7-2, right? Yeah. Every series except for 1-8 is going to be a bloodbath. So there's a reason the Thunder are that much better. You have to play that much better if you're going to keep it close. So it has to be below 10. If it's below 10 for the entirety of the game, then Memphis will be within that striking distance of making it a competitive game. If it's 12, 13, 14, 15 above, they'll lose by 30 or 40 points, and we'll head home to Memphis in a place where you're just kind of expecting the inevitable and, locker room clean out, media availability on Monday. I don't want that. I like talking playoff basketball. It beats the alternative that you and I were dealing with last year, partner.
Man, yeah.
I'd much rather do this. but they have to protect possessions, and they have to generate opportunities on the other end, make OKC uncomfortable, utilizing what advantages they do have in that front court and Ja's ability athletically. That's where they may have a sliver of hope to take advantage of the Thunder. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Check us out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, literally anywhere you get a podcast, you can get Locked On Grizzlies. And of course, it is playoff time. The Grizzlies are here. Maybe they're ready for playoff basketball. Fingers crossed. Locked On Grizzlies has you covered every step of the way. Thanks to the Locked On Grizzlies podcast newsletter, not just our show here, but also the newsletter with expert analysis from me, insider insights, and all of the playoff action delivered straight to your inbox for free. As a subscriber, you'll be entered to win one of these three amazing prizes: $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your sports cave setup, a $300 Game Time gift card, and a $200 Fanatics gift card. It's easy and free to enter. Subscribe between now and April 30th, so you got about a week to be automatically entered to win. Don't miss a moment of this hopeful playoff run. Join the Locked On Grizzlies newsletter today and experience the playoffs like never before. Subscribe today and enter to win by clicking on the link in the description. On tomorrow's show, Damichael, we will be talking Game 2, of course. I will be flying solo for that one because Damichael's finishing up his coverage, catching a plane to come home, all sorts of craziness. So I'll get the show solo tomorrow. Plenty to talk about with Game 2. And as we usually do, partner, I'm sure we'll text a little bit back and forth, and you can give me a nugget or two to talk about on the show with our folks for Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, we'll talk to the players, coaches after the game, and really get a good gauge. And I'm excited to see, how to respond in Game 2 because, like you said, you want to see them have some dignity, right? A wise person once said, if you're gonna go out on your shield, right? And that first game, it was like a first round TKO.
Yeah.
But
no shields going out on there.
Yeah, they said all this talk about watching film and all these things. We'll see if there's actually some reality to that, or is it just, what a lot of people think, you're just overmatched against a much better team.
To paraphrase Dylan Thomas, don't go gentle into the good night, right? Let's hopefully see the Grizzlies rage a little bit against the dying light. Nobody's predicting Grizzlies in 5, to say the least. Just a competitive showing in Game 2 compared to what happened in Game 1 would be good to see. We'll talk about that more on our next episode. For Damichael Cole, I'm Joe Mullinax. Stay locked in. Thank you so much for being with us on this episode of the show, and we'll catch you tomorrow talking Game 2 and more here on Locked On Grizzlies. See ya.